Breaking news update in the Nancy Guthrie case. The FBI has released footage of the suspect. Guys, I repeat, the FBI has released footage of the suspect, and I'm not going to lie to you. This person looks like a Mexican male. Guys, this is what we've been waiting for. It took them 10 days to release footage that they found on the Nest camera at the front door. This is real. I know that I said I thought the family had something to do with it before. I still kind of do. I still kind of do feel that way. Guys, the FBI finally released footage in the Nancy Guthrie kidnapping case. It took them 10 days. Where is Nancy Guthrie? Where is Nancy Guthrie? This guy looks dangerous and he looks prepared. He came there with a mission. Look at those gloves. Look at this guy. Look at his outfit. My goodness. Finally, we have footage. Finally. Oh my gosh. Let's see what the news has to say about this. Breaking news. Breaking news.
Here we have it. Now the photo is sort of showing. So that's the first one I mentioned. And this one, the actual photo itself goes longer than this. So this is a close-up of the individual from waist up. The actual photo on Kash Patel's X account shows a full body. And I can't quite tell, but Kaylee, does it look like, are those shoes? Are those boots?
They appear to be, if you zoom in closely, Emily, at the bottom, it appears to be tennis shoes, because I see at the very tip there's a little black plastic piece that seems like they would be tennis shoes. You see the black gloves. I mean, this is clearly someone intent on doing something and intent on being concealed and not seen while doing it. You see the backpack straps. And just a hat tip to the FBI right now for managing to recover this photo from that camera. And we know she had a Nest system, is what was reported. I'm unclear at the moment whether that front door camera was a Nest system, I'm told. So this was a Nest camera on the front door, a newly recovered photo, the first significant piece of information, and maybe explanatory, Emily, as to why in that latest video you had Savannah Guthrie backing away from the kidnapping and the ransom theory. This is a huge piece of new evidence. And we know, as Kennedy noted, that President Trump had said there was a big piece of evidence coming. So you wonder if they had this going back to Friday night and decided now is the time to release this. They needed new tips. The ransom deadline had passed.
Yeah, and that's a distinct backpack and fleece setup. So someone's going to recognize that jacket. That definitely looks like a guy based on body composition, the size of his head. Yeah. You know, they're shiny gloves. They're either black latex or leather. And that someone's going to identify that backpack pretty quickly. And
I just want to point out, because I want your thoughts on this. Now that we have this specific imagery from Nest, you can see in the upper right-hand corner it says Nest. This gives us a specific time, which means can the subpoenas now and then the warrants be narrowed down to this? We've talked about cameras that didn't have footage, but could this help to locate this individual as he likely went through Tucson afterward, now that we know the exact moment that these photos were taken?
Great point, Emily. So two things. One is, I wouldn't focus so much on the clothing as whether the facial features are clear enough for there to be facial recognition software run on them, because everybody's face is unique. It depends on the spacing between your eyes and so on. There might be enough there, even though he's wearing that mask, for the computers to go to work to try to figure out who it is. But you're right, Emily. The second thing I would do if I were the FBI's now, give this image and go to Arlo, go to Nest and say, search through all the recorded images you have. Use AI now to the advantage of law enforcement and find if there are other images of other cameras that are storing their footage, storing their archives, and locate where this person went from here to the next spot. I expect that he's probably changed his clothes. He might have a change of clothes in his bag. He's going to immediately try to disguise himself. But the face can't be changed. And maybe in all that trove of data and film, that face might appear, and the government can go to those companies and say, now we have an exigent circumstance. We're trying to track him down. We're trying to track her down. She might still be alive. We don't need a warrant. Give us any footage you have of this person located in anybody's archive.
Yeah.
I'm impressed by the level of actually detail. I was expecting one photo. Blurry, this could be indeed a breaking.
You've got a couple of different angles on the eyes. And, you know, you remember in the Charlie Kirk case, for example, when those images started to surface, you saw gait, you saw body movement, and his parents later said that when they saw the picture, they felt strongly that it was their son. And somebody's going to look at this picture and have the same recognition.
Good morning. I'm Diana Macedo. We're coming on the air with a major development in the search for Nancy Guthrie, the mother of Today Show host Savannah Guthrie. ABC News has confirmed law enforcement is releasing new images of a possible subject in Nancy's disappearance. Authorities believe the 84-year-old was taken from her home against her will more than a week ago. Savannah and her siblings have made multiple emotional appeals, even offered to pay for her safe return. A possible ransom deadline passed last night, though investigators haven't determined yet if the alleged ransom notes were real. And now these images are the first sign of a possible break in the case. Let's get to ABC's chief investigative correspondent, Aaron Katursky. Aaron, what do we know about these images so far?
They appear to come from the doorbell camera here at Nancy Guthrie's home that had been tampered with, according to the FBI. And if you look at these images that appear in black and white, Diane, you see an individual who appears to be wearing a backpack and a mask and gloves. And one of those images quite up close to the doorbell camera, the FBI says that is the individual tampering with the camera. The FBI says these images were previously inaccessible because the recording device had been taken, but working with the manufacturer, the FBI was able to recover these images. They are not characterizing the individual depicted in the image in any particular way, according to a message posted on social media by FBI Director Kash Patel. Previously, the FBI has said there are no suspects or persons of interest associated with Nancy Guthrie's disappearance. That now may be changing with the release of these images, though the FBI is not characterizing the individual depicted. You can see where the individual might be reaching close to the camera with a gloved hand to try and tamper with the camera before making entry. This was shortly before 2 a.m. at about 1:47 a.m. Mountain Time, according to a previous release timeline, Diane. And then at 2:12 a.m., a camera inside the house that was not set up to record images was able to detect an individual, an intruder, inside the house. And that's the window when police believe Nancy Guthrie was taken, Diane.
And I want to bring in retired FBI agent and ABC News contributor Brad Garrett. Brad, the FBI director is saying that these images came from back-end data. How does that process work, and how big is this finding?
Well, I think it's a huge finding. Your answer is how difficult it is. I think the short answer is it depends. But obviously, it took them several days working with, I assume, Amazon, who owns Ring, to come up with these images. But you don't have clear of a face. There are characteristics of this picture that I think are unique.
Brad, your audio is cutting out, so I'm going to go back to Aaron on that. Aaron, any more on how they got these images and what happens next?
We know, according to the sheriff, that they had been working with Google, which owns the Nest security system that Nancy Guthrie had installed. The statement from Director Patel does not specifically say which manufacturer, but that's what the sheriff had told us they were working with to try to recover these images on what the authorities say are the back-end systems. So even if the camera wasn't necessarily recording or the recording apparatus was removed, they were still able to recover the images probably by working with the manufacturer and likely, Diane, with the help of a warrant. So the FBI didn't specifically say, and I'm sure they're not terribly keen to explain how they recovered these images, but they did, and they are now the most important clue that we have seen in the last 9 days. There have been few, if any, leads, no suspects, according to the authorities, and while the individual depicted in a mask and backpack and gloves is not characterized as a suspect, the authorities now have at least one image to go on.
And I want to bring in retired FBI agent and ABC News contributor Richard Frankel. Richard, how big is this development? How significant is this? And where does the investigation go from here?
Yeah, as Aaron just said, this is the biggest development of the investigation in that they do have pictures now that, while not confirming she was taken, but confirming that there was a masked individual immediately before the time that she went missing. So, as you look at this investigation, it would lead me to believe that this was the person, at least, that was involved in some capacity in the abduction of Nancy Guthrie. And that's just, based upon my observation of what we're seeing. Also, it's hard to make out, is this a man? Is this a woman? Anything more about that. But you can see the eyes. You can see a little bit of the mouth. There are also programs out there, AI-generated techniques that are available to the FBI and to other law enforcement, that they may be able to start getting more information about who this person is. They're going to be taking that picture and they're going to be putting it through every single configuration that they have of every database they have to see if there's anything more that they can get from this picture. They're also going to be looking at the clothing. They're going to be looking at everything associated with these pictures to see if there's anything more that can take them to the next lead. But I think this is a great job by the FBI and by law enforcement. They did not just move on from just, based upon my observation of what we're seeing. Also, it's hard to make out, is this a man? Is this a woman? Anything more about that. But you can see the eyes. You can see a little bit of the mouth. There are also programs out there, AI-generated techniques that are available to the FBI and to other law enforcement, that they may be able to start getting more information about who this person is. They're going to be taking that picture and they're going to be putting it through every single configuration that they have of every database they have to see if there's anything more that they can get from this picture. They're also going to be looking at the clothing. They're going to be looking at everything associated with these pictures to see if there's anything more that can take them to the next lead. But I think this is a great job by the FBI and by law enforcement. They did not just move on from prior leads. They kept working it just like they do on these major investigations, and they were able to come up with this evidence.
And Aaron, they're not calling this person a suspect, but the FBI director does say this person was armed.
And I don't see a specific weapon just looking in the small version of these images, Diane, but that's what the FBI director says. And in looking just at the mask and the gloves and the backpack, and my God, you think how terrified Nancy Guthrie may have been, assuming she confronted this individual in her home at about 2 o'clock in the morning after a game night and dinner with her family at her daughter Annie's house nearby. We know that the FBI has also been scrutinizing other cameras here at the house. We spotted them on the roof, looking at rooftop cameras that were part of Nancy Guthrie's home security system. So perhaps the hope is they'll be able to recover additional images in addition to the ones that appear to be from the doorbell camera, previously inaccessible to authorities for a variety of reasons, they say. But the hope is to try and build out a much larger profile of this individual. Even though they're not calling the person a suspect, it is the best images authorities and the public now have to go on, Diane.
And so many now hoping that they will lead them to Nancy Guthrie. Aaron, Brad, Richard, thank you all. And investigators are asking anyone with any information related to this case to call either one of those two tip lines on your screen. And we will have much more on ABC News Live and abcnews.com. And David will be back with the whole team from World News Tonight with more on this story later this evening. I'm Diane Macedo. Right now, we'll return to your regular programming. Have a great rest of the day.
This has been a special report from ABC News.
The FBI has just released an actual video, and we're looking at it now. Ed and Jake, are you able to see what he's doing?
Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you. So, FBI Director Kash Patel just 2 minutes ago released new images. One of them is just another. Two of them are images, still images of this assailant walking up to Nancy Guthrie's front door. But then the videos, one of them has him holding his glove over the Nest camera and then walking backward and getting a tool or a rock.
No, it's not a tool.
What is he getting?
It looks like he goes back. He goes back out from the porch and grabs some shrubbery off the ground or grass
he's grabbing
or something.
Shrubbery. Okay.
And it looks like he was trying to cover the.
Oh, he's
ring
trying
camera.
to block the Nest camera. Okay,
so it looks
I
like
see.
He's trying to.
And that's the second image, the second video, I should say, of him taking this shrubbery, these plants from the yard and trying to block the camera.
And so at some point he gives up on that and then just decides
to take the camera altogether. But while he was doing that, the camera was indeed recording, and because of the work the FBI and the Pima County Sheriff, working with the private sector, working presumably with the folks behind these Nest cameras, they were able to get this video. And we're almost 10 days into this missing persons case, but it is pretty impressive information that they were able to get.
I do wonder, Jake, as I'm watching this, we're all trying to figure out, is this someone who planned this deliberately? How long was this planned for? But this suggests to me, and people smarter than me can opine, but you would think you'd know that there was a camera there. And almost like he seems unprepared to cover it up. Like he seems to me like if you knew the camera was there, you would have brought something to cover it up, or you would have just knocked it off.
Or gone right to it. It does suggest, and you and I are not sleuths, but just as humans watching this, it does suggest a lack of familiarity with the security in the front porch.
But then the way he's dressed and covered up and clearly prepared, I mean, the gloves, I mean, there's not an ounce of skin. Clearly someone who's probably thinking, I don't need to drop any kind of DNA around this scene whatsoever.
Yeah, so although, as Brianna points out, if you zoom in on the close-up of the mouth in his face mask, it does seem as though there could be a mustache there. It's unclear. But let's bring in Josh Campbell, our colleague who used to work for the FBI. Josh, correct me if I'm wrong, but these images seem potentially very valuable. They are much more clear on this suspect than images we've seen related to the United Healthcare executive killing or the Charlie Kirk assassination. And both of those resulted in alleged murderers being captured. These seem even better in terms of the quality and in terms of what's revealed in the images.
Absolutely, and this shows you the advancement in this camera technology that's now available to just the average consumer at their homes. And as you mentioned, in other cases, we have seen where there's a suspect who maybe walks by a camera on a street, and then you get some type of image. Of course, what's so notable here is that the camera is at the front entryway of this home where this person is, appears to be attempting to be entering. So you get all these different views of this individual. The point that you gentlemen made just a second ago, I think, is spot on. When you see him coming up, I say him, the person, possible subject here, it looks like this person then goes and finds some type of foliage or plant or flower or something there, perhaps with the intention of trying to obscure that camera. We do know that the camera itself was eventually removed, and that is why authorities have been taking so much time in order to try to access this image. The FBI says that they were working with private sector companies. When information is deleted, that doesn't mean it just is completely gone. Oftentimes these computer analysts can go through and look in what's called the slack space of different hard drives, depending on where information might be backed up to, in order to try to resurrect some of that imagery. But you're spot on, Jake, that this is crystal clear. This is certainly much clearer than I think many of us were actually expecting. We do see some other things in this video as well. Obviously, the person appears to be trying to obscure not only their face, but you see the gloves that are on there. As I was mentioning earlier, again, there's a lot we don't know, but criminals these days are are often smart in the sense that they don't want to leave it behind any type of DNA or fingerprints. And so that is the question here. Is that why this person is going through these links to try to, shield this person's hair to, ensure that no fingerprints actually make their way in? And then the last point I'll note, Jake, is that there's a lot that investigators would have been assessing before they even release this publicly. And that is every single item that you see on this individual, the backpack, the gloves, the clothing, all of that will be analyzed to try to determine where it came from, what companies sell that. Was there someone who recently was, in a particular retail store buying that type of material? It takes a lot of work. It's tedious, but that's what would be underway.
And one last thing before I throw it back to you, Brianna and Boris, is that Savannah Guthrie, obviously whose beloved mother was taken by this man, by this miscreant, just posted the 4 images that were initially released by the FBI from the Nest camera. Presumably she'll also post the other ones. But she posted all 4 of them, and she wrote, "We believe she is still alive. Bring her home. Anyone with information, please contact 1-800-CALL-FBI, 1-800-CALL-FBI, or the Pima County Sheriff's Department, 520-351-4900. That's 520-351-4900. So Savannah getting those images out as well, and I'm sure so many of her colleagues who have millions of followers will do that as well. And somebody out there knows who this is, and somebody out there will do the right thing and call the FBI.
That is certainly the hope. Let's bring Josh Sherrard back in. And Josh, as we're now watching the videos, what do you pick up on from seeing this person moving around outside Nancy Guthrie's home that would be perhaps useful for those who know this person, who have seen this person, to be able to identify them and to lead to an actual substantive tip that gets investigators closer to them?
Well, obviously the clothing, the backpack, now that we can see the full backpack, is incredibly helpful, but also kind of that gait analysis, right? The way people move. We recognize people more by the way that they move than by visual cues often. So understanding how they're moving, seeing them walk back and forth is definitely a great way to recognize someone that you might know, even when you can't see those features. But one of the things to note here as well is his calm demeanor. He's walking back and forth very calmly. While he may not have known about the camera, he's clearly not very concerned with it, as he takes a very casual approach to trying to cover it up and trying to destroy that evidence.
As we look at this footage, let's bring in CNN's Josh Campbell, because Josh, there is quite a bit that you can glean about this armed person outside of Nancy Guthrie's home trying to obstruct that camera.
That's right. And, I think it's worth noting that authorities, may call this individual a subject or a person of interest until they, have greater confidence. But I think, if I'm working that case, you see someone show up at a residence like that in the middle of the night, dressed the way this person is, completely trying to obscure their face, trying to obscure their hands, and showing up armed, which, as you mentioned on the video, we can actually see what appears to be the handle of a pistol that's tucked in to what looks like a holster at the individual at his front. And so there is no discernible reason why someone shows up looking like that with that type of, with a weapon, unless there are some type of sinister purposes. And so, again, they may say subject, they may say person of interest. This is the person that they're looking for right now. But it's so critical to release this footage now, and not just the imagery that we had earlier, but as we've been discussing, being able to look at this person's movement, to see how they walk, to see what type of clothing that this person has on. That could strike a chord with someone who might be watching. Either they know the person intimately, which is always the hope, that you have a family member or a friend who tries to put the pieces together. This looks like someone I know, and by the way, that person wasn't home or is now gone. It's those types of things that law enforcement, they're trying to essentially prime the public that we want anything that you have to obviously come forward. The video itself, Boris, as you mentioned, was able to be resurrected by law enforcement working meticulously with the private sector. People have been asking, well, what is taking so long to access those cameras? We know that because the camera itself was taken by presumably the person here, that authorities had to then work with this company to try to get any type of backup data. But now some very, very rich imagery that we're able to see. Authorities hope that someone will recognize something here and pick up the phone and call the FBI.
And Josh, that as well, but also that is a specific gun holster. That is a specific backpack. These are specific items on this individual that may have been purchased recently. How can law enforcement use that?
Everything that person brought to that scene is going to be scrutinized. As you mentioned, the clothing from top to bottom, the type of apparent ski mask that this person has on. There is that moment where he then turns, you see him walking away, and you have a fairly good shot of what type of backpack that is actually there. And as you mentioned, this is something that authorities have done, of time immemorial, essentially with the advancement of video camera technology. They will look and see, well, not only what type of material this is, who manufactures it, where is it sold, how many production lots could there have been for this particular type of material? Where did it go? What stores, where it shipped to? And then to try to see if, especially in recent days or weeks, that someone may have purchased this material for the sole intent of just committing this one alleged crime. Same with the backpack. A little harder with the firearm, just based on the imagery that we see there, but it will certainly be scrutinized.